Good morning, everyone. Hope you are all having a wonderful week. Thank you for joining us for our February 2021 update webinar. This is Madison Slater coming to you live. I will be your tour guide as we navigate through this month's webinar. Got some couple of fun things to share with you guys. Focus this week is definitely going to be on our demo. I expect that starting next month, we're going to start seeing a lot of updated content from WatchGuard. So we're in a little bit of a lull right here, but we've got some cool things upcoming this year. So we will go ahead and jump right in. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Everyone's line will be muted automatically. You can use the computer for audio only. There is no dial-in. We are recording this webinar, and so you can play this back on our website if you want to go back and rewatch it or have any coworkers that would like to see it. There is a chat window on the right side of your screen that you can send us over some questions. And as always, at the end, we will answer all of your questions and maybe throw in a couple answers of our own of things that you might be curious about. So we will go ahead and get started with this month's topics. We're going to start with our firmware updates, give you guys an update on where we are there, talk about some of WatchGuard's updated product certifications. We will talk about the AuthPoint configuration updates, and then we will be doing a demo of our Ikev2 Vpn configuration. That's a popular request we've been getting on the support side, so I want to make sure you all understand what that setup looks like. And then I'll share with you some of our upcoming training in case you are looking to get some more formal hands-on experience. All right, so as far as firmware updates, WatchGuard has recently released some new firmware, and if you are not aware, one of the things that WatchGuard is currently doing is splitting firmware based off of the model. So right now, our latest firmware for any of the still supported XTM devices is 12.1.3, update 4. This was released back in October. Now, one of the things that I like to constantly remind any of you that are still using XTMs about is that these devices are stopped at 12.1.3. They are still releasing these updates, but the updates are really just bug fixes. We are not getting brand new firmware for those devices. They don't get the new features like SD-WAN or some of the updated service offerings. If you still have an XTM device, please consider replacing it with a T-Series or an M-Series. You might as well get the most benefit out of the money that you're spending, so we would want to get you guys upgraded. WatchGuard offers a lot of great trade-up options, so if you still do have an XTM, then let us know and we'll see what deals we can get you worked out with to get you on some of that newer hardware. Now, for the T10, T15, and some of our other M models, the current release is 12.5.7. This came out on the 2nd of February. For our newer T devices like the T20, T80, some of our bigger M devices like the M4600, M370, the new release there is 12.6.4, also released on the 2nd of February. We are currently testing those firmware versions. If any of you have talked to me about firmware, have attended any of our training or previous webinars, you know that we are usually a little hesitant on jumping to new firmware immediately. We are testing these new versions. We are currently running on 12.6.2 update 3 with a lot of our managed devices, but we want to go ahead and test out these new firmware revisions since those are a little bit, the 12.6.2 goes back to October. So just be on the lookout for some updates from us if we see that those new firmware revisions seem to be operating okay. In general, we typically try to operate under the wait for update 1 because that's going to be bug fixes on that firmware. But sometimes we need to go ahead and move ahead just so that we're not lagging too far behind. Our general practice is that we try to upgrade our firewalls every quarter. So every 3 months, we're trying to get an upgrade on there, and it's about that time. So we will let you know how our testing of 12.5.7 and 12.6.4 goes as we continue to put those through its paces. Updated product certification. So this is maybe something that a couple of you are interested in, but definitely something that I wanted to share. So as you know, working in IT, certifications are a big deal, not just for us as IT personnel, but certifications on devices. And one of the things that WatchGuard has been doing is trying to get their boxes certified for industry standards, so that if your organization is under certain types of regulation or compliance and they are asking you to make sure that the devices you are running are adhering to certain levels of security, then you can say with certainty that that box is. WatchGuard has been working diligently over the last couple of years to get their devices up to these certifications, making sure that they are formally and officially recognized. Some of the big ones that we see are the FIPS 142 and then the common criteria certifications. This is a screenshot off of WatchGuard's website. I've also included the actual URL there, so if you are looking for some more information on the certifications and what devices are included, you can navigate to that part of their website. Now, to talk about one of these very specifically, our FIPS 142, this is focused on encryption. And one of the things that with encryption, there's a whole bunch of types of encryption security, you know, depending on the level of security that you're looking to implement. So knowing which one you should be using is vital. So one of the things that WatchGuard has been working hard on is making sure that their devices are following this FIPS 142. Now, this has to do with NIST. So if you are familiar with NIST standards, it's just indicating what level of security those devices are running. We see this a lot with a lot of state and local governments, police departments, emergency response. NIST is a big piece of government entities. So if you are falling into any of those particular types of organization or business, and you have been asked to verify if your device is FIPS compliant, then we've got, again, this little chart here that shows what the different hardware versions are that WatchGuard has been working on to make sure that those are up to par. And some of them are currently pending, but they are actively working on that. And ensuring that product certifications are staying up to date is definitely one of the big things that WatchGuard has been focused on. There is also a certification called ISO 27001. This is a requirement for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving an information security management system. This is specifically something that WatchGuard has been working on with their cloud platform, which is, of course, where AuthPoint is located. We get a lot of questions about the security of WatchGuard Cloud when it comes to implementing your logging information there. So, you know, WatchGuard has been working to make sure that that platform is as secured as it can possibly be and is adhering to the standards that are commonly accepted in the industry. So just a couple of quick updates there. There's plenty of material out there from WatchGuard. I don't want to bore you guys too much with compliance or standards, but just a couple of big notes of some updates that they've been working on. Also, as far as updates, one of the things that we have talked about in previous webinars as part of the beta testing that is now available live is some updates to AuthPoint configuration. Now inside of AuthPoint, you can implement your configuration a little bit differently than what we have seen in the past. One of the big things is how we are managing user and groups. The core of AuthPoint configuration and management is done by user group. So making sure that that configuration is easy to manage, easy to implement, it has been a big focus of WatchGuard. One of the big things that they have changed is the implementation of policies inside of AuthPoint. And again, this is live. This is no longer in beta. You should see it in your AuthPoint portal. You can write policies. These policies will be verified in order. If there are policies that conflict, it is based off of the order, so much like the policies on your WatchGuard firewall. And what this means is that we can have users who are members of multiple groups. So you've got some maneuverability there. If AuthPoint is something that you have been looking into, or if it's something that you have maybe set up a while back and you know, haven't taken a lot of look at it recently because it's one of those great services that just works. it is cool to check out the new policy implementation and see some of the stuff that they've got going on there. So those were really the couple of big updates. I think we're going to have some more stuff to talk about in next month's webinar. You know, sometimes information is a little light, so we're going to focus on our demo this week. And one of the things when we're doing demos is we always want to bring relevant information to you guys. I am big on hands-on learning, and you know, seeing how something is implemented is different than reading how it is implemented. So one of the things that I want to focus on this week is setting up the Ikev2 Vpn. This is one of the big support requests that we get on our management side. Because of 2020, you know, a lot of users went to work from home, and we still have users that are working from home, and there is a never-ending struggle of trying to figure out what is the best way to get them connected. On your WatchGuard firewall, you have 4 mobile VPN options. You have SSL, IPsec, L2TP, and Ikev2. Ikev2 is definitely our leader when it comes to setting up a mobile VPN. It is easy to configure, and it is easy for your client or your user to have running and to get connected. Ikev2 is also one of the best performing VPNs. We have gotten a lot of calls over the last year about the SSL VPN. That previously was probably the most widely used of the ones that we were managing, and lots of complaints about speed. And as often happens, we would get the question, how do I fix this? Well, unfortunately, the SSL VPN just is slow. It's just one of the functions of that VPN. In fact, if you look on WatchGuard's website, they have a chart that compares the different mobile VPNs, and the speed of SSL is listed as good, where Ikev2 and IPsec will be listed as excellent. They know it's slow. SSL also requires that you have a client installed on your user computer, and that gives you another point of troubleshooting that you're having to deal with. So we started moving to the Ikev2 VPN when it first came out to test it out, have been very happy with it, and haven't looked back. And now with being able to implement AuthPoint MFA with it, which is a vital part of securing a VPN, it is our leader. So I want to show you guys how to set it up. If you have already set up the Ikev2 VPN, I hope this will be a good reminder. I am a big proponent of checking your work, so I always urge people to go back through and look at their configuration, make sure that they did it right the first time. All right, so let's get our Ikev2 VPN set up. I prefer Policy Manager. You can set this up through web interface, but I'll show you through Policy Manager how to get this up and going. If you have taken my class, you know that I am not a huge proponent of wizards. However, the mobile VPN wizards are actually pretty good, and we'll walk you through every piece of information that you need to set up. The setup of this mobile VPN is going to take you about 30 seconds. It's not a difficult setup. So if this is something you haven't tested out, you see what I'm doing, you like it, then set it up for yourself. It's not going to take you very much time to get it up and going. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is specify the Firebox domain or IP address that our clients are going to connect to. Now, you can get fancy with this. I'm going to keep this simple. We would typically just put in the external IP of our VPN. Then we click Next. And now we need to select the authentication server that we want to use. The Ikev2 VPN is interesting. You cannot tie it directly into Active Directory. However, you can tie it into Radius. There are plenty of instructional pieces of help documentation out there from WatchGuard about setting up Radius. That's also something we are happy to assist with. But basically what you are doing, if you do not currently use Radius, you set up the NPS service on your Active Directory server that ties Radius. It creates the Radius connection, but it's tying it into your Active Directory environment. So on the back end, you are still just using your AD accounts, usernames, and passwords. It is just the Radius connector that is being used from the firewall. I don't currently have Radius set up on my firewall, so I'm just going to create local Firebox accounts. But in a perfect environment, we would recommend that you actually use your domain accounts. No point in recreating things that already exist. So what we're doing here is we're just selecting the authentication server that we want to use. Next, we need to specify the users or groups that we are going to allow to connect to this VPN. One of the key components of mobile VPN security is that not just everyone can connect. They have to be a member of the group that is allowed through the VPN, or their particular user account has to be allowed. One of the things that the Ikev2 Vpn does is creates a default Ikev2-users group. This is something that I can easily use if I am using authentication on the Firebox itself. I can add my local accounts into that group. Let's say that you are using your Radius/Active Directory. One of the things that you can do is go into that environment. You would create that group specifically, and it needs to be identical. Spelling, capitalization, punctuation, all of that needs to be exactly the same. You would create that group in your authentication environment, add the users to it that you wanted to allow. Or you can pull groups from your authentication that already exist. So I can say new, external user and group. I would list the name of the group that is coming from my Active Directory environment / my Radius setup. So let's say I have a group called VPN Management, and I would need to make sure that I'm spelling that right. So I can add that here as well. If you want to use that group or user account on this firewall, you need to make sure that you have it checked. Now, just as a side note, one of the questions we've gotten a lot over the last several years is, how do I prevent my users from connecting to a mobile VPN with their home computer? And it is a fantastic question because home computers are not secure. We just have to assume, right? We don't control them. We don't know if they've even got basic antivirus running. One of the newer things that you can do with mobile VPNs is this host sensor enforcement. And this ties into TDR, Threat Detection and Response, which is one of the security services that you have available through Total Security. With TDR, what you are doing is installing a host sensor, an application, on the endpoint. So what this host sensor enforcement says is that that would have to be installed on that machine in order for the user to connect here through the mobile VPN. So that way, you know, okay, I've only rolled TDR out to the devices that I manage, so a user is not going to be able to connect with a personal device. This is something that if you are currently running TDR and you have mobile VPNs configured, I would highly recommend you at least put some thought into about implementing that. There is a setting that we have to update inside of the TDR setup itself. It's a simple little checkbox. It's not too difficult, but definitely something that I would recommend. We always want to control authentication into our mobile VPNs as much as possible. In a perfect environment, we would also be implementing MFA as part of this. So we've got multiple layers of protection and ensuring that the users that are connecting are the ones that we want to connect. So as part of this authentication, Ikev2 users, that is always available through the mobile VPN. Whether you are using that group or not is up to you, but that one is one that is included by default. And then you can add other groups here or individual user accounts into your VPN configuration. So then we click next, and this takes us to our virtual IP address pool. So when a user connects to a mobile VPN, they have to be assigned an IP address. That's basically how we're going to route traffic between them into our network and vice versa. One of the things that WatchGuard now does with their mobile VPNs is they create their own virtual IP pool, and each of the mobile VPNs uses a different one. The SSL, as an example, uses 192.168.113. I think the LTTP uses .116. They all use something different. My general practice here, as long as I am not using this particular subnet inside of my network, I typically leave it as the default. One of the things that we often see people do is pulling IPs from their internal range. So instead of using this, they will add their own virtual subnet into this mobile VPN. The difficulty with that is overlap. It's very possible that you will be trying to assign the same IP both from your DHCP scope internally as well to a virtual IP being assigned to a VPN user. So my recommendation, just use your whole separate subnet. If you are already using this particular .114, remove that, add something new. It's simple, and then when you're looking at your logging, you will know based off of the IP address that that is mobile VPN traffic as opposed to just regular internal traffic. So this will finish me up. I will go ahead and open the configuration dialog. Now there are a couple of things in here which you can also just get back into that once you've created that mobile VPN by going back to the Ikev2 option. So this is where if we ever need to update our VPN settings, we can do so. So if I need to change the external IP, the virtual IP address, any of my authentication settings, if I want to update the security of my phase 1 or phase 2, I can do that. The big thing though, and this is small, but something that often gets overlooked. We have an internal joke. It's always DNS. One of our salespeople, that's just his default because he hears us talking about it on the IT side enough. Turns out DNS is the culprit for a lot of networking issues. And it can be the culprit of issues on your mobile VPN. The default setting for Ikev2 is that it will assign the network DNS and WIN settings to mobile clients. So when a user connects to the mobile VPN, to the Ikev2, the firewall has to give them a DNS server. By default, it is going to give them whatever you have listed in your network configuration under WIN's DNS. So if your firewall is pointed to external DNS servers like mine is here, then that's what I'm handing my mobile VPN users. So if they're trying to remote into their desktop using the FQDN, it is not going to work. So my recommendation, and would I like this to pop up in the wizard? Absolutely. Does it? No. So I have to remember to go in and do it. Assign specific DNS servers into your mobile VPN. Give them your internal DNS. So if my internal DNS is 10.2 and then I've got a backup DNS 10.3, I'm going to assign that. If I'm using WIN servers, I would assign those there. Give the mobile VPN the DNS settings that you actually want it to use. You can say don't assign, but then they're not going to be able to do anything. At this point, the mobile VPN would be set up, but one of the things that I want to leave you with is understanding the policy that is created. Setting up the VPN is one thing. Now you have to control their access through a policy. And what the Ikev2 VPN setup wizard does so lovingly is it gives me an any policy. So what this policy says is that if I'm using the default Ikev2 users group, they can get to anything. Any includes everything inside of my network, everything outside of my network, everything across a across the branch host VPN on any port. If you have taken my class, you know that this is bad. Never allow access to everything. It's not good. So what we need to do is we need to take the authentication group or user that we had set up in that mobile VPN, and we need to either build new policies for it or add it into pre-existing policies. Control your VPN users' traffic. Do not give them access to everything. I cannot stress that enough. So I actually did not use that Ikev2 users group, so that's not going to do much for me. So what I would do is I am big on being efficient, so I would take policies that I have already created, say add user, look for the group that I referenced. So I said that it was VPN management, and I'm going to add that into my policies. What I am doing by adding them into these policies, especially ones that already exist, is setting it so that when they connect to that mobile VPN, it's just like they're sitting behind my firewall. Please don't give them access to everything. Policies are a big issue with mobile VPNs. You can get the VPN up and running very simply, but that policy will make or break how secure that VPN actually is. So make sure that you are locking that down. We do have some blog posts up on our website about that. If that's something that you would like some more direct assistance with making sure that yours is locked down, please contact us and we will be happy to review it with you and make sure that we've got it set as securely as we possibly can. The rollout of the Ikev2 VPN for your user experience is quite simple. Again, we've got some setup instructions. If you Google JSCM group Ikev2, you will find our blog post about it. There's also some really good help documentation out there from WatchGuard. But again, I just wanted to give you guys a run through of how to set up the VPN itself. Now, if any of you would like some more in-depth training, one of the things that we offer every 3 weeks is an official WatchGuard training class. We are one of the few certified training partners in the United States. We offer a class every 3 weeks. All of our classes are virtual or in person. Our virtual class offerings, you get the exact same experience as sitting in a physical class. The only exception is you don't have to stare at me all day. You just get to stare at my screen. We're very adamant on our WatchGuard classes being relevant, keeping you up to date on information. So if you have not yet taken a WatchGuard training class and have been interested in one, or it's been a couple of years since you took it, then make sure that you are checking our upcoming schedule. We've got all of our class schedule posted on our website, as well as the one listed here for you guys to see. We've got classes scheduled right now out through June. We will be working on Q3 classes relatively soon, so you'll see new classes offered there. It's a 4-day class, gets a good amount of information, and we also make sure to cover, again, anything new or relevant that might have come out that is not included in the official courseware yet. So check that out. If you've been interested in some training, let us know, and we'll get you into one of our upcoming classes. And finally, questions. So if you have any questions, please send those over, and I will answer those. And if not, then cut you guys loose here in just a second. Let me just give it a second, see if we had any questions come in. I did have any issues with the new AuthPoint updates with current configuration? No. So it just converts everything over. Any updates that they do through the portal, they're not re-evaluating or recreating the wheel there. So when they released that update, our AuthPoint kept working. So any of you that are currently on AuthPoint, your updates are already there. All right, I don't see any other questions. If at any point you have a question come up, please feel free to shoot me an email, nslater@jscmgroup.com. You can also contact us through our website. There's plenty of information that we have out there. If you have not had a chance to check out our WatchGuard blog, we post there at least once a month. It's all pertinent information. That's where we share a lot of our how-tos. So thank you all for your time. I appreciate you taking time out of your week to join us, and we will talk to you during next month's webinar. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.